praises due to God.
When you leave.
Off the chain.
Now, what's the question, brother? What's the question?
So the question is,
What's the question?
should men be expected to cover 100% of the bills?
I believe if men are claiming to be providers, and we know that means to take care of whoever's under you, that he should provide 100%. While we're doing this, this gives the woman time and space, not just to be great for the man, but also great for the children. And I want to use myself for example. I provide 100% for my woman. My son, he's only 5 years old, and he was tested 2 days ago, if I'm not mistaken. 2 days ago. He's only in kindergarten, but he tested at a 4th grade level. Why is that? Because I handle my responsibility, providing, and providing isn't just financial. Any man off the street can walk to a woman and give her money. Providing is elevating a woman mentally, elevating a woman spiritually, emotionally. This is what it means to provide for a woman. Not just, here's some money, run off with it. No. Let me elevate you. Let me bring you closer to your God. Let me set standards in your life. If your father gave you to me, you are my responsibility from the bottom of your feet to the top of your head. I'm going to love everything about you, 100%. And if I can't do that, I'm not a man. I'm a male. And that's a difference.
That's your one
Man,
track.
talk to me, brother.
No.
Talk to me, brother.
No.
Talk to me,
that's
brother.
not what we're going to do today.
Talk to me, brother.
So this is what we're going to do.
Talk to me, brother.
Because he's like Kamala Harris right now.
Talk to me, brother.
And I've heard all of these talking points.
Talk to
and
me.
I don't even study him. Because he says the same thing over and over again.
Talk to me.
You got to control yourself.
Talk
because
to me,
that's
brother.
not manly.
Talk to me, brother.
You got to control yourself.
Brother, talk to me, brother.
So you see how I was quiet
Talk to
when
me.
you were speaking?
No, you cut me off, but go ahead, brother.
I didn't say anything.
You got it, brother. There you go.
I was quiet when you were speaking.
Go ahead, brother.
And so now we're going to add nuance. Now we're going to add context. So first thing we have to do is we have to ask ourselves the question, what does it mean to be a man? Because being manly has nothing to do with a woman. It has nothing to do with pandering. It has nothing to do with just providing. Being a man means being purposeful. That's what being a man is. That means that whatever it is that I seek from God, because my purpose is not a woman. A woman is a helpmeet. So when he panders to you guys, and ladies, remember, I don't know what he's selling. I don't know what product that he has, but my goal is to get you married. My goal is to have you married based off of what God says is sanctified, right? I don't want y'all divorced. I don't want you unequally yoked. I don't want you to be a single baby mama. I don't want you shooting your shot in the dark thinking that this guy is giving you insight when he's just giving you talking points with no real substance behind it. And here's the context. At what age do you want to be married? Do you put yourself in a position to find the person that's best for you? Has your father given you away? Does your parents actually see value in the person that is looking to marry you? And when you start to ask yourself these questions, and I don't speak to just rich people because we both have money, we both have resources. So let's remove that from the table. I speak to the majority, not the minority. And when you are 20, 21, 22 years old, especially if you are a person that's looking to become a man, you are supposed to fail in controlled environments, meaning that your father is not even supposed to give you everything. He's supposed to give you what you need in order to be successful. My father was able to buy me a car, but he told me that I had to earn it and work for it because I valued it more, which then extended to every single thing that I touch, including the woman. See, my wife is here. My wife travels with me. She knows me. She understands me, right? And so at 20, 21, 22 years old, you're supposed to be broke. Unless you're doing something that you ain't supposed to do in order to get it, you're supposed to be building. You're supposed to be understanding each other. It's a storming, a norming, a forming situation. And in no circumstance do you ever come into it fully understanding who the person is, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman. And so when we start to look at what God has ordained to be great, the purpose of a man, it's not just to give spirituality and leadership. It's to understand. The first thing that the word says, in everything that you do, you get understanding. And everything you do, you get understanding. I don't even know her. I don't even know you. Everybody is out here dating, everybody running around, everybody doing everything. They're giving themselves to each other. We think that money or resources or what you can do or what you can offer a person is supposed to make up all of the insecurities and the problems and the issues that you have in your childhood. What have you solved for? Right? Do you have problems in your childhood? Do you even have a father? Do you know what it means to be a man? It's a lot of women that's raising men to be feminine because they're in single parent households, right? How does that look? What does it look like when you get into a situation with a woman that has a child out of wedlock already, and then she still has to deal with the father? How do you deal with that? See, these are the questions that he can't answer for you because the only thing he talks about is pandering. I'm talking about context. I'm talking about substance. I'm talking about spirituality. I'm talking about praying together. I'm talking about building. You're supposed to get married when you're young because it prevents you from sinning and finding yourself with all of these bodies and these soul ties that ultimately carry with you for the rest of your life. And then you start to see every single man, and you can't take it out of your memory with the person that you wind up being with. Most women have skipped over the man that they're supposed to be with.
Buddy. Listen, hey guys, welcome to Little Black Bert 91. Listen, it's gonna get techie real quick today. I mean, this conversation I think is a very powerful conversation because I think there are two sides here, and I don't think it's necessarily right or wrong. I think there are angles we are looking at the conversation that are speaking to two different perceptions whilst we're looking at something. You know, we can both look at something and have two different perceptions, and I think that is what we're having today. But the question we're asking today is, then, should men be paying all their women's bills in 2024? Should men be paying all the bills of women in 2024? I want to have that conversation. I'm not going to do it alone. I am joined by the illustrious and the wonderful, the intelligent, the wise Jay Anderson. Captain, how you doing, brother?
I'm all right, my bro. I missed you, man. It's been a while.
Miss you too, bro.
We back. We back. We always discuss things anyway, so
do what we do best.
That's it, which is a great conversation of wisdom. But we laugh as well. We're a little bit of toxicity sometimes, you know.
Indeed. Listen, I mean, give me your initial thoughts on this conversation. You've watched predominantly most of it. Give me your initial thoughts.
So I think to stay on point, we have to kind of address not the point Anton was making about marriage, but the point he's making about Yada, which most men, just like we felt with Derek Jackson, the way he says things is in a very panderish way, which is quite simply, he puts down men to lift up women. Men shouldn't put down women to lift up men. Like we need to get away from talking to each other in that way. Where we acknowledge we're not, where we are fallen and we need to get back up, then we need to be able to teach. We need to be able to guide. That's literally what we should be doing. So we can put that aside because we all understand, if you pay attention to how Yada, you know, when he's talking, whenever he's on these platforms, it's like he doesn't like men. You know, that's what I would say is, well, what's going on with you, bro? But when it comes to the actual conversation, we've had it many times. And I think for most men, I do know it's changing, and it can definitely differ from culture to culture. Most men would love to be in a position where they'll be able to say to their wives, baby, you don't have to worry about nothing. I got you. And to some capacity, some men are able to do that. But when it comes to 100%, I think we also have to make it clear, because for the audience, the American economy is very different than the UK economy. Even the drive to even get certain things is very, very different. So the point is, everything is in context. Everything is in context, and you have to address not only what you want, but the situation that you're in and what you're working towards. Not just say this is what it should be, and whoever's not attaining that is just rubbish. That's the wrong way to do things.
Listen, I definitely understand that as well, and I think you started off really, really strong. What I would say also is that I think initially with this situation, I think every man I shouldn't say every, most men I think do desire to want to pay the bills all the way through 2024. You know, 2024, 1950s, whenever it was, men desire that. I think it's crazy because I'm agreeing with Anton Daniels here. I think what the conversation, as he was alluding to, requires that nuance. Without the nuance, it does become a pandering talk. Right? So without there being some balance where you are, and this can go for either men or women, but when there is no balance on an equation of a conversation, and you consistently, not just on one conversation, but on several different conversations that we've seen you on, consistently give one side, you tend to be quite unrealistic about the expectations that either party should really be expecting, right? Without really discussing the realities of actual life. And I think that what Yada was kind of explaining here, the part that I really disagreed with him is that it always goes back to then that man is not a man. And what he's discussing is that a certain type of man has certain type of resources and the ability to do certain things. You know, and I think that for me personally is a problem. Right? Because again, you know, we have to look at the nuance of society and where we're at. We're now in a generation, and a society economically where financially it is very difficult, right? And depending on what market you are in, if you're in the UK, European market, or you're in the American market, if you're in the African market, depending on what that market looks like, and depending on the financial, GDP of that country, depending again of, the gender pay gap, as they would call it, there's a whole bunch of things that have to play into this aspect, right? About contributing towards this conversation. So I think that's where it becomes a bit of a problem for me, right? If he said, listen, every man should strive to get to a place of trying to pay all, to get to a place of paying all the bills, then I can see that. You know what I'm saying to you? I'm okay. I can work with that. But the moment then we have to say that a man is not a man because he can't pay all the bills, what we're creating now is this elitist mentality and idea, which actually doesn't benefit anyone apart from the person who's actually elitist. And so for me, that's where I see the pandering, I guess, aspect coming in as well. So I don't know if you have anything to add on that before we watch the next clip and go on from there.
Yeah, it's so everything you said I agree with, and it's that aspect of what. So are you saying, if you keep it American UK, are you then saying that the majority of men in the UK and the US, who by the way, they're not men, they're not yes men, they're not men who can't lead, like good men, simply because they can't give their women 250k a year, they're not men? That doesn't make sense. That absolutely doesn't make sense. And I feel like when it comes to these conversations, and don't get me wrong, you've probably all done it, but some people can get so carried away that they don't realize what they're saying is actually silly. Now, if you are in a position to be able to do that, that's what we want. Well done, you. That we'll clap for him, say, well done, Yada. Well done. But when you're trying to speak to people, when you're trying to advise people, you're doing that based on where they are and where they want to go. Under no circumstances should you say, because a man who is not able to do that now is not a man. He's just a man who has a journey, and that's it. So let's flip it around. Let's talk about polarity, the expectations that a man has of a woman. So if a woman can't particularly cook, is she not a woman? Are we then given that type of equivalence? We're not. That would be a silly thing to say. So this is why, for me, I push back. With Yada, his foundations, trust me, we encourage you. We have these conversations all the time. A lot of men, this is a black channel mostly, so a lot of black men, if they have the ability to, it is their pride to be able to do these things. But it's how he is going about it. And we spoke about this probably beginning of this year or last year when it comes to Yada, is in a very problematic way. But we do not disagree with the fact that as a man, there is a degree of provision, biblically and morally, that you should be able to provide for your missus. That just changes from man to man.
Yeah, you're not lying there. And I think also, even behind that, I won't go too deep into it. Yada's got a history.
Yeah.
And the history's bad. So it's like you need to chill. That's what I would say. Let's watch the next clip, because we'll get back onto him. We'll get back onto his aspect as well. Okay. Okay. This next clip. It's gonna slightly a little bit further on. Here we go.
Put him to rest, and from that rib, he took.
Sorry.
But when God created man, God gave man a purpose. And what was the purpose? What was the purpose? He placed that man in a garden. What's this? That's a tree. What's this? Those are clouds. What's that? That's a sky. What's that? That's a bear.
That's not what happened.
Listen to
You
me.
don't even know the
Man,
word of
listen
God.
to me.
You don't even know the word of
Listen
God,
to
but
me,
I'm gonna let you
brother.
go.
Listen to me. And when God, seeing that he was fit to represent himself as a man, he put him to rest. And from that rib, he took Eve. Now, this is a fact. Now we have to understand, what does it mean when you create a woman from the rib? What is a rib? A rib protects the internal organs, the heart and the rib. If the rib is mishandled, it fractures, it breaks. And what does that do to the man? It leaves him vulnerable. It leaves him hurt. But if a man handles this rib, protects this rib, uplifts this rib, guides this rib, loves this rib, this woman is able to become something greater than what she was created, which uplifts the man himself. So God gave a man responsibility before he gave him a woman. He didn't say, here's Adam and here's Eve. He said, here's Adam and here's a responsibility. And then when God was seeing that he was fit to be considered a man and a head, which God is the head of man and man is the head of woman, he then gave God Eve. And then what happened, brother? And then what happened?
You tell me. Because I'm going to add the context. I want you
No, we can go in deep. If you want chapters,
you to
we can do this. But I need every young man listening to me that was raised in a home without a father. Young girls that was raised in homes without fathers. Your mother is divine greatness. Your mother is beautiful. I don't care what no man says about you, your mother, or where you can go. Strive to elevate. Strive to become the best version you are before you get into a relationship, so you don't have to drag a woman through the same things your fathers did to your mothers. Love yourself enough to provide for yourself. So when you get into a relationship with a woman, you don't have to abandon her or drag her through your turmoils. All praises is completely due to the Most High. Go ahead, my brother.
You know what's so funny about that story, the part that he left out?
What's that?
Is that she hearkened to the voice of the serpent. And the man wasn't there to protect her. God was. They had everything. They didn't even know that they was naked. He made her because he said that it wasn't good for man to be alone. And he didn't point to figure it out. He let him name every single thing that was in the garden. And the context matters. And this is what happens when you know your word. And the interesting part about it is the devil know parts of the Bible too.
Oh, man.
The devil know parts of the Bible too. So the serpent itself was able to beguile Eve because he understood what God told them not to do. To not to eat from that tree. Not to eat that fruit. And although she had all of the covering that she could ever want and need, there is no greater provider than God himself. And you know what she did? She was disobedient. She still ate, and not only did she eat, she went and she gave it to her husband too, which then got them kicked out, and then they had to put cherubims around the tree of life so that they wouldn't eat it and become gods themselves. That's scripture. And then their children was raised up to then kill one another because one of them was jealous of the other. And then
Now, I think this is an interesting conversation, all right, because I think you can have different perspectives on the faith aspect. Personally, I don't think either of them were wrong, to be honest, on this aspect, because it depends on how you're going to read that scripture, to be honest. I see where Yada was coming from. I actually understand where he was pointed out, saying the man was beside Eve, and you can make that inference from the scripture. At the same time, I also understand Anton about bringing the context of scripture. The woman was made for the man, etc., made from the rib. What was your perspective in that aspect in terms of the conversation? How did you read it in that space, Jay?
So where I start is whether someone sees it as Adam was literally right next to her, or she had to maybe walk a bit or go around a corner and give the apple to Adam. I mean, if you want to discuss, Bible accuracy, we can. But in the context of provision, well, not provision, but in the context of this whole conversation that we're having, to me, it doesn't really matter. Because the point of the Adam and not the point, but a point of the Adam and Eve story is that Adam, well, they both should have done better, but Adam should have done what he knew he was supposed to do from a leadership perspective. This is why God came afterwards. I was joking with someone the other day that God didn't even come straight to him. He just started, he was just around, and then he realized, where's these people? What's going on here? So there was something that was supposed to happen first. Now, for me, I 100% agree with, in general, both of them. Like you said, bro, both of them are not actually wrong. They are coming with different perspectives, clearly different energy, as we can see in the chat with Yada. We don't know why he's like this. He's just like this. But I just, purely see it as the most optimum position for a man and woman to be in, if you want it. And I say that because I've had strong debates with people yesterday who see femininity and masculinity, leadership and submission as a social construct. No, they're not Christians. So I have to say, if you want it, the most optimum is what Yada is describing. That's the most optimum. I've come to realize myself that not just financial, but a degree of provision over a woman's life allows her to exhale, allows her to free her mind, allows her to relax a whole lot more. So I find it unfortunate when guys become yes men, when guys literally let their wives lead them, because they don't realize how much is on that woman's shoulders. She might not even realize. She might think this is normal to me, this is regular, this is what I want, yeah. Until her guy says, you know what, baby, you don't have to worry about it. Let's see how she feels. Unfortunately, some women have to be like that because some of the guys that they have chosen or are receiving are not responsible men. So from that point of view, I understand the point Yard is making in terms of what a guy's job is supposed to be. Because when you look at the Bible, it tells us, first is, You both have to understand what submission is in terms of your particular role. Then it breaks down what it means for women. But to speak about men, you're submitting to the responsibility. You're submitting to the sacrifice. It's hard to be a leader. It's hard to be in charge. To be a leader, you are serving the people you are leading. Not even effectively, you actually are serving the people you're leading. It is not an easy job to do. That can be made easier in certain circumstances, or if you can provide a certain circumstance. But to me, it is the most optimum to be in. It's just that the question is, it has to be in context. Because where we talk about the UK and America more specifically, the majority of people do not have this perfect setup. They just don't. Not everyone's going to be a millionaire. They do discuss it, but I remember, I think I was saying in a group, sometimes you do have to think how things were maybe 100 years ago, where ladies were happy to allow a man to give that full provision, but they was happy with a man. If he earned 50K a year, they was happy with that 50K a year, and they would live within those means. They just wanted to be taken care of. Now, obviously, people want more. People want luxury. People want, whatever they feel that they can get. No problems. No problem with what you want. It's just that times have changed. So you have to address not just who you're with, but what is in front of you. What are you working towards? So if you are the type of person that wants someone who has it already, no problem. I have nothing negative to say against you. But there's also nothing negative to say against a person who doesn't have all of it yet. They're working towards it, and that's okay too. Since especially the majority of us were or are in that position where we're working towards having something more. Under no circumstances would I allow anyone to say, because Kojo, me and you are not millionaires, that we're not men. You're a clown if you, no, absolutely no way. It's not happening. No way.
Listen, I definitely hear that, and I think the context scripturally for Adam and Eve, first and foremost, obviously when Adam, I would say that I'd agree with Yada on this point, where Adam was beside Eve in that scripture. I think he was beside her. I think he watched her do what she did, and he didn't say nothing. All right, he was as curious as she was, and he let her roam, just like Abraham let Sarah talk him into a situation and hearken to the voice, which is why the English use the word hearken, because it's the same thing that was used with Adam and Eve, right? So I definitely agree with that aspect. We see it also with Adam later on, saying it's a woman that he gave me, passing on the blame, not being accountable. So I think the great part for this particular conversation, though, is that if because obviously it shifted here because of the fact that the roles that men are and women are playing, and again, what you spoke about was a nuance again, because not everybody follows that particular strand or that particular basis, but I think most people would love that particular aspect where the man can pay all the bills and the woman can be free to be able to choose and work whatever she wants to work or not work, or whatever she wants to end up choosing to do, which I have no problem with. But again, it should then not be the contending foundation for what a man is. If he can't pay 100% of the bills, or be a millionaire, or has helicopters and freaking Galados in his garage, that now he's a man, right? It shouldn't be that. So it should be the case of the fact that a man is, I first and foremost would say that a man that has character, but a man who also knows. I love the word that Anton used. It was also a man that comes into purpose, but. So a man that is able to be led, and that led is person above him, which is God, and then him also submitting to God, but also allowing the Lord to lead him as well, right? And him developing his character, somebody who also understands that protection, provision, and being a priest over their home, right? Or over them, even over their own lives, if you want to call it that, right? So for me personally, it goes beyond just the resources. There are many rich men out there who, quote unquote, people would say, yeah, they are men on the outside, but their behavior shows us that they're still beasts. You know what I mean? There is no responsibility. There's no accountability. There is behavior that is detrimental. You know what I mean? So I also see that aspect. So yeah, I got the conversation. I understood where the conversation was going to. I personally don't think that either of them were necessarily wrong in this aspect. Again, it's a Mulberry Bush conversation in that aspect for the Adam and Eve situation. So yeah, that was interesting. I'll go to the next part of the clip because they did have a few more conversations as well in that aspect. So let me go here.
Solving for also wanting to be successful, but understanding that it's an exchange for strengths for weaknesses, because it's not just one way, right? Women do add value into the conversation, and you're 20, 21, 22, 23 years old, you're supposed to be broke. Relatively, I mean, compared to what me and him have, you're supposed to be broke. You're not going to be making 200, 300, 400, $1 million, $2 million a year. That's just a fact, unless you're doing something that you're not supposed to do. So at that age, I absolutely advocate for people to get married. And I also believe that it's best for people that have less resources to get married, because it's a quicker way to build wealth. The goal ultimately should always be to where you can release her from doing the things that normal women would do that are single, as far as having to provide and protect for themselves. But at the same time, I also think that there's nuance in that, because if you're in a relationship with somebody that's early in there and you got it from scratch, I think that she has equity in what you do. If you're a 40, 50-year-old man, I think you need to probably get yourself together before you decide that you want to bring a woman into your space and you can't provide. And that's the context. I think that when you're older, if you've been playing video games and you've been doing the same thing over and over again and you don't have the results, you need to go and study your word. You need to get in your Bible. You need to dedicate yourself. You need to get a coach. You need to figure out what life is like. So at that point, I don't think that you should be in a relationship.
So context.
So that's an interesting point. I think it's a fair point what they Anton made there in regards to that. What's your particular perspective on that as well?
I don't know. There's a lot, man. There is a lot. Again, I think in this whole conversation, there's nothing, apart from certain details, but on a bigger spectrum, there's nothing that I disagree with in terms of the context of where are you at a particular point in time. Because if you're young, you only have what you have unless you've been given a lot. But when you're an older person, it comes with greater expectation. That is what it is. Women expect more from you. You should expect more from yourself. So if you haven't put yourself in a position where you can be the most optimum for a woman, you've got some questions to really ask yourself. And there are clearly men who don't even care, who will still try to do what they do. And I mean, whatever happens, happens. Just like there are ladies who are willing to accept that. It is what it is. Nothing we say can change that, but we can only address what is the best position to be in. So in that sense, yes, 100%. I think things are different when you are in your early 20s compared to your 30s or 40s, as you say. I think you just have to look at life differently. It's not that in your 30s, you can't then adjust your life to become extremely successful. No. You can do 100%. But what I would say to men is understand that the way women might look at you is a bit different. Because the truth is, what have you been doing in your life? And I've actually had a particular woman actually have that aspect in terms of how she viewed me. What have I been doing in my life at a point in time? I was 30 at the time, I think, or 29, something like that. And that was her aspect, because she had built her life. And I couldn't really say anything. I just understood what her context was in her life. We had different lives, different responsibilities, different sacrifices, whatnot. But I just understood why she had the perspective that she has. Which is why from that point, I say, before I hit 40, I'm going to make sure I'm on six figures. 100%. I'm going to make sure I am there clearly, not just touching it, clearly. That was the drive I had. And I always say this, it's like a battery pack strapped to my back. But on top of that is because I want to be in the most optimum position to be able to provide provision, not just financially, but to be able to provide the foundation that my missus is going to be way more relaxed in. And I see that in my particular relationship, which I guess for context for everyone, I've proposed, so she's now my fiance. I know some of you were trying to get onto me a while back because I hadn't proposed to her yet and all this stuff. Whatever. But she's now my fiance. Pray for us. We always need it. Calm down. But yes, but which is why I pay attention to certain things and I see how she responds when I'm providing a particular type of provision. I see how more relaxed she is. And I say to her, do you know what? As time goes by, as I'm able to do more, I want to do more. So I'm happy to do more. You know, I'm not going to restrict more because this is what I want to do for you. I see this as my duty. I see this as an honor, and I see this as, and I see how you naturally respond to it. And I want you to be in your most optimum, because she is a woman. If I put something in her hands, she will just, it will be magical. Which reminds me of a Proverbs 31 woman. I think it was Elsie or Dahlia said in the chat about, you know, women not working wasn't necessarily a thing. It's just that they was working in the home, they had their fields, where with the family business, etc. This is what the Proverbs in Proverbs 31, well 9 to 31, this is what it describes, right? So I want to create the most optimum foundation where, you know, she can be as free as she needs to be in order to be at her most optimum, instead of having to worry about the things I'm worrying about, you know, having to take care of everyone, without, you know, allowing her mind to wander. I want to provide that safety, that security. Now, yes, there are some men out there who don't even know what that means. Clearly, there's some men out there who have let 2024 liberalness get into them, and they are on six figures, but will still tell you we're paying 50% in this household. It does happen. But the majority of men, let's say in our community, the majority of men do want to be in this position when it comes to women. Whether they can or not is a different story, and it's one that has context to it. But it's up to you what type of choice you make.
Yeah, I love that as well, and I think that is a key point you've mentioned there as well. I think that's I'm not going to say that age doesn't matter. Age does matter. Okay, it's gonna provide the context for the viewership and how we're going to perceive the situation, which is why it actually works. Time works against both men and women, right? In terms of what you're trying to achieve, right? For us as men specifically, you know, our actual maturation point of financial power is actually at 40. So actually at 40, most men actually start making the most money they've actually going to make probably in their lifetime. So, you know, we age is a factor, you know what I mean? And again, I always say this, I do not have a problem if a woman said, listen, he doesn't make enough for me that I am where I'm going to. Why would I have a problem with that? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think anyone should have a problem with that. You know what I mean? I would have a problem if you tell me now I'm not a man because I don't match the financial level. Or if a man tells me I'm not a man because I don't match the financial level that he matches. That's your level. And you should be great, and you should actually come with a bit more humility, because it's by the grace of God that you can even make wealth. So we should always be very careful about where we speak from, because not every man's a king. Could everybody be King David? Could everybody be King Saul? Not everyone could be, right? So we have to be very, very careful about how we speak from what level we are. Even when we look at this, you know, this word. I say look word, but even if you look at the aspect when it comes to gifts and talents, not everyone has the same talents and gifts, right? And some people's gifts will literally blow them up, right? There's some talents of some people that will blow them up and they'll become global stars. Is everybody Chris Brown? No. So you have to work with whatever faith and the amount of that gift that is open the door for you, and work with that gift, and be humble about it too. And if you're somebody who has reached the pinnacle, you're at the top. By the grace of God, you're at the top. Now, and the way that you speak about situations is not to be a down on anybody. It's actually just to be humble and be like, you know what? It's by the grace of God. I spoke about this the other day, about how, like, it's by the grace of God that I haven't, you know, I've not impregnated somebody. It's not because I'm amazing, you know. I've done the same mistakes a lot of men have done. You know what I'm saying to you? When I started learning how to talk differently. I don't want to talk wickedest and baddest. I try to keep myself open to be like, you know what? I don't have your perspective, or I haven't seen what you've seen, or I try to be like, you know what? Let me just a little bit, because it could easily be me. And it could easily be that I'm on the better side, or it could easily be on the bad side. There are stories of people who had money and lost money, right? And they've never recovered. So you must always, and that's why I spoke about this last time about prenups. I said, for me personally, I don't care how rich I'm going to get. You know what I mean? For me personally, I don't need a prenup. And the reason was because if God was giving me the ability to make money, I can make it again. That was my thought process. And it's only because I know it's because of God that I'm able to make money. So I trust the source that I'm coming from. So again, it goes back to that conversation of time, age, all of that is actually important. If a woman sees a man and goes, you know what, at 40, you're not my level financially, I understand it. I don't think anyone should take any kind of offense to it. Leave her to it. I get on with my life. You know what I'm saying to you? I've had conversations with a few women, even it was a few years ago. And I think I started this story last time. I said, I was talking to one young lady and she told me that she's going to be making 500k. And I said, I can't even lie to you. We are not on the same level. You are far beyond. And it doesn't mean I can't make it there. It just meant that right now and the time limit before I get to that level, I couldn't see myself in a short space of time getting there. Therefore, let me not stop you. Go where you're going. You know what I'm saying to you? Because otherwise you might put pressure on me to try and reach your level and it becomes a frustration. I don't need that. Let me make my pace. So go at my pace so I can actually make what I need to make. So again, that's also about managing what you have. And that's my perspective. So it is what it is. You know what I'm saying to you. So, there was an extra part there anyway. So they let me put the next part of it, and you jump in again, Jay, for us.
Just so I understand, a man between his 20s and I guess between 20 and 30, it's fine for him to not be able to provide 100%
Yes,
because
absolutely.
he's building with his lady. As a
100%.
man gets
And
40,
here's the rest of the context, though, because I think that in society, and we live in this social media culture, that everybody thinks that you're supposed to live in a mansion. Everybody thinks that you're supposed to have a high-rise condo, right? You could provide 100%, especially if you have children, but are you willing to lower your lifestyle in order to build successfully and then add value into the assets that will ultimately make you rich in the future, right? So it's so much nuance. There's so much context to this. And it depends on where you at in your life. It depends on what you're studying. It depends on what your family structure is like. It depends on if you come from money and resources, right? All of those things matter. And I think that there is no one right answer. It depends on the circumstance, and everybody's circumstance is different.
there we have it. Okay, Yada, we're going to give you a chance to respond here.
I love the way you articulate himself. It's very beautiful. But being well traveled, I've seen men provide 100% without having so much. And like the brother said, as long as they're staying within their standards, I don't think a man should get into a relationship with a woman until he knows he's able to handle all responsibilities by himself, just in case that woman leaves him. Because if you're in a relationship with a woman and you're living with a woman and she's paying half and you're paying half and she leaves you, what are you gonna do? Lose everything you have, your car, your home? A man has to be able to provide for himself and another comfortably before he entertains a woman. But not just speaking on the financial part, a man needs to make sure he's spiritually whole, mentally whole, emotionally whole. Because if he's coming from America and coming from certain backgrounds, majority of the time they're scarred. Even if they were raised in home with two parents, they're scarred and they're battling some form of childhood trauma. And men, we get so caught up in our ego and our pride, we tend to bleed on the person that's right next to us, forgetting this person's on our team. Now we're stressed out because we can't pay the bills like we should. She's fussing at us. Now what we do, we drinking more, we smoking more, we trying to run away from the truth. We're trying to run away from our children. Brothers, if you're listening to me and you didn't have the proper father in your life, please, I beg you, take care of yourself. Love yourself, provide for yourself. Spend the first 5 years of your adulthood working on becoming the man that you need to be so you can get the woman you want and not the woman you settled for. Because a lot of men are getting into relationships with women they're settling for because they can't get the woman that they truly want. Now they're misusing this woman, abusing this woman. Children come, they leave this woman. Most men that leave women because they weren't properly good with them. They didn't love them. They couldn't connect to them on all levels. They got a woman that took them at the level which they were on, and a woman that they truly wanted. They're not going to look at them. So all I'm saying to my brothers, and I love what Anton, I don't disagree when he said family is business. No, man, I for sure, it's business. But brothers, please take care of yourself mentally, emotionally, financially. Make sure you're talking to counselors. Make sure you're dealing with childhood trauma, especially if you were raised in homes with abusive fathers, either verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, or physically abusive, or you didn't have a father whatsoever. Spend this time in your adulthood loving on yourself, protecting yourself, leading yourself, and guiding yourself. So when you do find a woman that you love, you don't break her. Women can't endure what we endure. They can't do it. And when a man is building on the come up, we pour so much hurt onto our women because men get stressed out. When we're trying to build, we get stressed out. To get to where me and Antoine's at, we put a lot of work in, and it came with a lot of pain. It wasn't peaches and creams and kumbayas. It's, I got to figure this out. What's going on? And sometimes the woman right next to us gets this attitude, gets this aggression, not because we don't love them, but they're right next to us. So we're bleeding on them without meaning to, and we're blessed to have women, because I believe your wife was with you when you come up, right?
Absolutely. I've known her since high school.
They were able to endure the men till we got to this level, because I wasn't this man 10, 20 years ago, but I had to go through so much to become this man, from trial and error. And I'm just blessed to have a woman that was able to endure it. A lot of women don't have the endurance for that. And a man should never bleed on his woman if he says he loves her.
And he preaching good and living differently. He got 2 wives. That's what I'm going to say. Anyway, he preaching good, but he got 2 wives. That's why he's not telling you. But anyway, talk to me, Jay. What was your perspective on this? Because I know he responded. I think there were some great points that were being made as well. But what was your thought process?
So before I talk about exactly what he was saying, I want to explain. Tell me if you agree, bro, with what happened. He stopped talking to Anton. He stopped trying to counteract Anton. he stopped trying to challenge Anton, and he humbled himself and just addressed the issue. Yes. Do you see how he changed in his countenance, in his voice inflection? You can now see that the state of where we are, it bothers him. This is, I have to give, not that he realized this is what happened, but at this point, for those who haven't seen it, you can see where, in fact, let me change what I said. You can see where he's realized actually that him and Anton actually agree on more than what he thought originally was going to happen. But he probably hasn't realized that he's actually dropped his, I don't know what to call it, his angry behavior. I don't know what to call it. And this is what we're trying to say. Where he is now and talking about these issues, this is not the first time on that channel, not the first time on Calder's channel where we've talked about these issues and we've addressed them directly as it pertains to men. But this is how we need to speak to each other. This is how we need to teach. Be direct, because what he said was amazing and it's accurate. There are thousands, millions of men who are bleeding on their women because of where they are not. There are many men who, haven't done the work to even facilitate a healthy, stable, and secure relationship, and they're just destroying women left, right, center. I've been seeing in the chat, there are many men who are having children that that don't even have the mental or the emotional capacity to take care of. They don't even take care of the women. So there's no way they're going to take care of the child. But I think where Anton's point is going to lead to, and his point has always existed, if you also noticed, and Yada hasn't said anything negative about women throughout all this moment in time. I don't know what the timestamp is for the video at this moment in time. And this is where Anton's going to address, do you know what? I agree with you where we are as a society. But where we are as a society means that women have to be accountable for their own part to play in what they contribute to the mess. What me and Culture say as men, we acknowledge that happens. But what we're going to do is say, okay, do you know what? As guys, we're meant to be the leaders. Let's just focus on what we need to do. We're not going to pretend that women don't have their own work to do, but we're going to focus on the work that we need to do. This is how you teach. This is how you guide. This is how you meant to address things. This is how you're actually going to get people to listen to you and say, do you know what? You're right, You're absolutely right. What I've been doing, it's a shame. It's a shame. Kojo, you've been quite vocal on this channel about the revelations you've had this year about your past relationships, where you thought you was okay, but realized, nah, do you know what I was doing? Whoa, I actually caused that. I actually did this. It's the same for all of us when we get to a certain point as men and we say, how do we elevate as men? And it's by recognizing what we've done in the past and understanding what has that caused? What has that role? Which is why we have the perspective, the strong perspective that we have now, because we have decided to elevate as men. This is how I see where that conversation has got. This is where I see it now. This is how they should have been speaking to each other from the beginning. And by the way, I'm not putting all that in Yada. I know Anton came there to counteract Yada as well, so don't get me wrong. But where we are now is where we should be as men, to sit down and discuss these things, because ultimately, women feel a particular way because of how they've been treated for decades, for hundreds of years. We're just at a place now where everybody's wrong. Everybody needs to do the work. So how do we do it? And we can't keep doing that by the versus mentality or always trying to focus on comparisons. We have to understand the gender nuance and address it as that, and the work that needs to be done. The more we have this versus mentality or this comparison or this pandering, then yeah, nothing's going to get better.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Like I said, I feel, what it is. I don't know. It's sweet to the ears. That's all I'm gonna say. It's sweet to the ears when Yada speaks. And I think at this point, when he decided to kind of drop it and he gave a balance, that is what I was looking for. It's why I say that sometimes when people are addressing things, there needs to be a balance, meaning that I address both the men and the women, and we do this in order to create balance so that you get a fair, equitable conversation. Because if it goes in either direction, it's a problem. Like when we talk about how women are often engineered and reared to be wives, but maybe sometimes men are not. Young boys are not, right? That's an unbalanced equation, and it leads to unbalanced results. So balance needs to be applied whenever these conversations come. But he made some really good points. In that space. and about how both the men and the women should grow and become the best people they need to be in order to be the right kind of partners for each other. So I definitely, totally understand that as well, and I definitely feel that as well. I think there's a great part that he addressed there, and I'm not gonna go against what he said. I like the fact that he just kept the balance. That's all we're ever asking for. Balance is important. Without it, you go the wrong direction. You know what I mean? So I think that was good. Okay, the next part he spoke about, and I want to address, which is what Anton addressed him directly. So let me put this part here. Hold on.
Or seen or had, regardless if we had fathers in our lives, we should become better versions of them. And if we didn't have fathers in our lives, we should strive to do for our children what no man has done for us. And again, I give all praises due to the Most High.
There you have it.
Man.
Anton, can we go to round two?
No, because we're not just gonna skip. We're not gonna skip past certain things.
Okay, okay.
What we got?
He says he's speaking to a certain demographic of men. I'm speaking to people. I think that women and men need to heal because there's no Captain Save 'em that's gonna come into your life and fix the things that you didn't fix yourself. And that's the difference between us. Fundamentally, on a lot of the things that we do agree on, right? We do agree on a lot of things. The problem between him and I is that he doesn't speak to people. I believe that because he understands his audience, he understands his demographic. I think that he slants his words towards always speaking negatively towards men and don't hold women accountable, which is one of the reasons why he purposely left out the abusive mothers also, because we can solve for 99.9% of all men in society today. And guess what? Because of how we are biologically made, 1% of men can populate 90% of all women. So even if all men got themselves together, men could still, certain demographic of men, because it's a false narrative to say and hold, if he's speaking to the majority of men, like he said that he was, it's a false narrative to say that the majority of men are out here doing things that they're not supposed to do, holding themselves accountable and getting women pregnant out of wedlock. There's a small minority of men that's populating the majority of these women that's getting them pregnant out of wedlock. And so if you're going to speak to something, then you have to solve for the majority, not the minority. Women are out here choosing for themselves because they have the availability to do so. They having a slut walk. I seen you say on Angela Yee's podcast, you told a woman that said that she was ready to slut it out because she had been abstinent for 2 years and she was ready to have 3 different guys at the same time. And you encouraged her. You said, go ahead, date them all. Date them all.
Yes, I did.
And so that absolves us. When you look at the pool of women that's available to a great man that then dedicated himself, let's say he preserved himself. Let's say he did what he was supposed to do. I'm not going to, in my right mind, tell this guy to go and marry a single baby mama. And I'm not saying that.
Hold on. So again, I didn't hear you. Say that again,
We
please.
have that conversation coming
Okay,
up. So
all right,
hold
we're
on,
going to
hold on
get
for that
there.
conversation.
But the point is that.
But this was accurate,
The
though, y'all.
point, the point is that if you're going to speak to the majority, speak to the majority of the population, not just the majority of men that you think fit under your narrative, because they don't.
The reason why I speak to men, and this has to be highly important. I need my beautiful brother to hear this and all the other men hearing this. If we...
Okay, before he responds, Jay, what's your thoughts on this, man? Before he responds.
I mean, the whole single baby mother thing, I know why a certain demographic of men feel that particular way, and I don't even argue with why they feel the particular way. What I would say is just don't entertain a man who sees you as less value because you've had a child before him. We've all made our mistakes. We've all thought maybe something was great and it really wasn't. Some of us more than others. It's ultimately what you are doing, and this is me speaking to the ladies, you are receiving a man who is going to choose you despite your circumstance. 100%. Do not worry about men who are going to put you down because of it. And it's something that Kojo was alluding to, but in the reverse. Don't focus on men who are going to put you down because of it. I understand it's going to be triggering, but ultimately, all that person is saying is they're not for you. They're not for you. So I know Yada's going to say this as well, but yeah, I disagree with the whole, because you've had a child, you're automatically of lower value. But I agree with Anton with what he said earlier is you need to address the nuanced situation though. It's, if anything, I'm going to say it's not just about a man not wanting to deal with that. It's addressing what is the circumstance, because it's not easy. I've got 2 kids. I've had ladies say to me, yeah, that situation, that's not for me. In their mind, it's the drama, etc. I don't have drama, but it's what's assumed because of what's going on out there. So this is where we have to have a balanced view and address things in a proper way as you see them. If you have a particular standards that you want to keep to, fine, no problem. Well, let's stop fighting people because of their standards. Just don't date me and say I'm not good enough. Just date people who you are their standard, then that's okay. Because there's people who will see me as good enough, A, B, C. So that's the main and probably the only thing I want to address. Because again, I know what Yada is going to say, but because we've spoken about Yada quite a lot, this is where I want to say we're pushing back specifically on Anton because of that single mother rhetoric. Again, we understand why men or women say that they don't want to be with a man or woman who's got kids. However, the idea of you are less value, that also perpetuates the versus mentality. And when men say it, we know the triggering that's going to happen. When women say it's equally as wrong, but we know we're not really triggered by that in the same way. So that's what I want to address and stick to before we move on.
Now it's quite interesting that you said that because you're right. The reason why it's not going to be triggering to us as men is because it doesn't actually hold. So the problem with it is the wording. It is the wording of saying someone loses value, and not explaining what that actually fully means, encapsulating. That's where it becomes very triggering because when it becomes a slapstick and becomes label and it becomes a way of almost bashing someone, right? Rather than explaining what actually is being said. For instance, right, if we look at men and we look at women, it is depending on what men and women are looking for, right? So quote unquote, it's sexual market value in terms of what people are looking for when they are dating people. People do weigh up people, right? Women weigh up men in terms of their financials and their character. Can this man, take care of me emotionally, physically, mentally? They're looking for certain things in that aspect. And so, and again, and even looks as well. Women will rate men based upon the looks as well, right? And that will add up to quote unquote a value. And then the same for men. Men will look at a woman and maybe their preference may not be somebody who has a kid at first, but that depends again of a nuance. What age are you? At 20, your first thought might not necessarily be to be with somebody who has a child, right? So that person may not be in your circumference. But that goes back to that nuance conversation that Anton was saying about earlier on, that he needs to add also, because it's not just about a single mother. Because by 35, 40, most of us got kids. So hey ho, do you know what I'm saying to you? Hey ho, we all in the same boat. So again, nuance is really important again. But I understand what he meant by sexual market value, but he didn't explain it. He just left it as. So then the same thing he accused Yada of doing, he done the same thing by not explaining the nuance and the context of what that really looks like. Because age is an important factor in that. If a 20-year-old came to you and said, I'm about to date a young lady who has a child or somebody else, we might all look at like, 20, okay, are you sure you know what you're getting into? We might ask that young man, do you know what you're getting into? Why would we ask him that? Because we inherently feel like, that's a lot of responsibility to get into at that age. There is a context to that. So, yes, again, this is something in that debate and argument that, again, needed some more fleshing out in regards to the conversation. I've always said that sexual market value has almost like two phases, because the 20s to the 30s to the 35, you want to say it as one phase, right? But it's phase two that we never talk about, which is why I didn't like what people were saying. They never talk about the second aspect of the phase. The divorcees, the people that are still single, you know what I'm saying, Chew, all right? The people that are just now doing the healing and have got into a good place, and they're like, you know what? I know it may look late, but I'm on things. That second phase is a different phase. So all that talk about, a woman won't be considered or won't be valued or whatever. Yeah, in some aspects in the first phase, if you've got certain things, it might not work. But it gonna catch up by the time we get to 40. Okay, yeah, to 40, 45, everyone got kids, you know what I'm saying? Someone said, some man got ED. Yeah, my man had my ED, whatever. It's a completely different phase, and people are looking for completely different things at that point. So phase two, you can't talk about it like you're talking phase one. That's the context. That's the nuance. That's the aspect of bringing the holistic conversation, rather than saying that a man will never want you because you can't have kids, or you don't want kids, or you are not married by 30. You've hit the wall. You've hit the first phase. You're about to enter the second phase two. Phase two is different. Phase two is different, baby. Okay? So, yeah, that's that added context to that. I don't know if you want to add one more thing, Jay, before last bit of video.
Yeah, just to reiterate, obviously, if we're pushing back at Yada saying men who don't earn a certain amount, and by the way, this is not even a conversation of 100K. Like the way Yada is, he's saying that you need to earn, a 0.5% type of money, right? We're saying that doesn't make you any less of a man. It's also strange for Anton to say because when it comes to you have a child that makes you less. It doesn't make sense. So he's literally, like, you're right, bro. He's literally doing the same thing, just using a different point to do that. That's just him. Do you know what I mean? Me and Kojo don't particularly feel that way. However, a man or woman, still has a right to choose what they want to deal with in their life without being attacked for it. It's just that don't attack people who have a particular circumstance that you probably don't want to deal with. That doesn't make sense. What I'll say is, I saw it in the comments. Okay, and the whole going back to the baby father thing, I think probably because of Kevin Samuels, which he's not the first, but it's the one that exploded the most. There was a lot of women on there who left good men. And I think it's assumed when people have this conversation that a bad woman has left a good man and therefore she should go back to that good man. We know that's not always the case. We know that sometimes they've had to leave because that relationship was awful, because that man was awful. We don't know people's particular situation, so it's not easy just to say to someone just to go back. Because would I go back to my... No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. This beard will probably be grey. I probably wouldn't be on this live right now. So, I think that it needs a lot more sensitivity when it comes to that conversation, and not assume that a person left a good man or a good woman. We just have to understand that we made our choices that didn't work, but hopefully we are now better from that and we have learned, and therefore we're able to move on. So those are the two things I wanted to say.
Yeah, I definitely understand that, bro. I think, I think the reality of the situation is, these conversations need a good, healthy balance in all of them. I think, I see both Anton and Yada's conversation, and I can understand where both of them are coming from. I think it's just a case of being balanced, being nuanced, whether you're talking about men or women. I don't care who you talk about. Just make sure it's balanced when you're talking about, and you're willing to consider different points of view before you come to a conclusion. Like you said, obviously going back to the baby father. Like if the woman goes back to it's not about just going back to the baby father. Is that man the right type of man to be in a relationship with? Sometimes it's better to be away from that partner and be in another relationship because that person's not a good partner for you. And so this is an important topic, right, to discuss in a multifaceted type of way, because there are multiple layers included in the conversation. So it's not a one-size-fits-all situation, because there are many different sides of heads. Excuse my, pardon there, but it's intended. It's important that there's a necessity of allowing for different points of view to come in and to be able to see the different angles in order to be able to create that dynamic conversation, to be able to say, okay, now we can actually present this appropriately. So I think, again, going back to the title of the video, should men pay all bills? I would want all men to pay all bills. Okay. And I would say this, the reality of the situation is I'd also want everybody to be a millionaire. Not everyone's going to be a millionaire. You know what I'm saying to you? There's always going to be a percentage, and as one would say it, 20 to the 80%, if they want to call it that, right? There is always going to be a majority of people that don't make enough. And I think what I don't like is that when this conversation happens, for both men and women, by the way, is that it becomes this really nasty conversation, because in reality, from both sides, people are pigeonholing people. But the reality is, just like I said about when it looks like there are a lot of bad men, I said the good men are not on the internet. Okay, most good men that are doing their marriage thing, they're not involved in the internet. And just got to be honest with you, majority of them not. You know what I'm saying to you? A majority of men are very quietly living their life quietly in their nice marriage. So you rarely ever get to see people that are in healthy marriages all the time, because they don't get put on the screens. They're not on your internets all the time, right? And they're living their life purely in enjoyment in their marriage, quietly. Because actually that's how oftentimes most people are going to enjoy their marriage, in quietness. You know what I'm saying to you? So it does become sometimes respectability, I don't know, almost like politics in a sense of awareness in terms of what can be seen. But the reality, like I said, of the situation is that in real life, and especially in the UK, America, I'm sure you have the same thing, but in UK specifically, people are working together. No. If you really want to if you really want to look at the conversation, you have to look at it from a financial standpoint in realism, right? And you start breaking down the context of percentages of how many people actually earn the average salary in the UK. I think the average salary, has it gone up now? Is it what, 28 or the 30 now? Is it now 30 in the UK now?
But it's 30.
Is it 30? Let me just. I mean, average salary
Average
in the
30,
UK.
35, isn't it?
In
Oh,
UK.
in London. Okay. In London, it's
In
30.
London, it's 30, exactly. In London, it's 35, but I think in the whole of UK, it's 28 or something. It is not 28k. Just to put it into perspective, okay, all right. If you can only buy a house 4.5 times more than your salary, just put it into perspective. As to this conversation is ludicrously out of your financial tax bracket for most people, and it becomes nonsense. You have 30k, and let's say your average salary, okay, and you have to buy a house. You have to get one on mortgage. Take away the fact that you do shared home, which is normally a robbery anyway, but get a genuine mortgage. You can only go 4.5 times your actual salary, plus obviously then whatever savings you might have to put down as a deposit, right? So imagine you earn 30k. Let's just say you had even let's say you even had 15k deposit. You know what I'm saying to you? But you want to buy a house, right? You can go 4.5 times your actual salary. So let's say 120k, but plus 15k, 135k, 140,000 pound house. Now, if you live in London, I'm going to tell you, you're not getting a house more than likely in London. Well, at least not in the central aspects. Not without it coming out with some certain non-things that are not beneficial. Do you see what I'm saying to you? Like, we're not having this conversation in real life. We just get on with it. Because my 30k, your 30k, or my 40k, your 40k, we're putting it together to even make life work. Do you see what I'm saying to you? Because we're in a really crazy system. So, you know, I honestly, a lot of these times we have these conversations, it's out of people's pay grade, it's out of their financial tax bracket. Okay, you haven't got a financial accountant. You know what I'm saying to you? So you don't even file out taxes every year. Most of you in UK, at least for us in UK, the conversation goes over our head. Yet we engage in it all the time because actually we're fighting a fantasy. Go for it, Jay.
No, what you're saying is correct, and I think for the American audience, to give context, a lot of people in London who are getting married in our generation have to not just consider, but have to accept they have to move outside of London, and not just Greater London, but even beyond there, simply because how the economy is right now is ridiculous based on where you want to live. Unless you've had that house for 20 years, or maybe your parents or your grandparents already had it, it's just where we are. And if you think about how much the average price of a house is now, even in London, people are saying if you're on 100k a year, which in the UK is still what, 1% anyway of the population, it's not enough to live in the capital. And when you break down the numbers for, you say, you, your partner, and kids, people say, if you want to live the way you want to, and by the way, it's a combined income, yeah? Combined income. If you want to live the way that you want to, you're probably going to have to make some concessions, which is fine. A lot of people make concessions. That's not even the biggest issue. But if you do want a certain type of lifestyle and make your money make sense, you need to consider your financial options properly, which is one of the main reasons why a lot of husbands and wives are combining their income and saying, what can we do with this in order to make our lives better? It doesn't mean that the man is any less of anything. It just means we are addressing what is going on in this moment in time. And I think there was a lady who was in the chat who addressed the fact that, again, if some ladies were happy to say, do you know what, I want to live in London, but I am happy to live within those means that the income is able to provide, then cool. There's people who do that, no problem. But and I'm not saying you have to do that, but you have to be fair and you have to address things with the context that you're in. Ask those questions to the person that you're currently trying to date or who you're with to actually see how do they think about these things, because these things normally come into play later. And I guess the context of what Anton was trying to say, if you choose a person who is willing to build so that you get there down the line, then, you know, God bless you. But it's a very dangerous conversation where we say everyone must have it now, because for most people that's not the case, even if they're trying.
And my thing is this: not everyone's going to have it for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And I need some people to get it through their head. It may be you, it may not be you. right? Maybe you've told yourself you're not going to be you, then it's not going to be you. You know what I'm saying to you? But the reality of the situation is, I keep saying this, like, not everyone's a king and everyone's a queen. I'm so sorry. What I mean by that is, in terms of finances, not everyone makes enough and is going to make enough money, right? The same way that you're right now, maybe you're making 100K. Why are you not a millionaire? Why are you not a billionaire? Why is it that you can't make it to a trillionaire? Right? There is a grace for what you've been given, and sometimes we need to learn how to be content. I'm not saying that don't strive for more. What I'm saying is, and sometimes what ends up happening is, we look at, especially in the UK for us as well, we get too much information from America. No offense to them. We get too much information from America. So what ends up happening is our picture gets distorted. And in reality, in fact, our whole life now, since social media has come into play, it's a distortion. We are looking at other people's lives and comparing ourselves to other people's lives. And it's like, my G, majority of you people will not be living that type of lifestyle. You will not be. You know what I'm saying to you? You won't be living that lifestyle. So the reality of the situation is, it's not about cussing anybody. It's about also coming to a place of realism in terms of what your gift is, what your skills is. Can you improve? Can you do more? Yes. Then look to do more. You know what I'm saying to you? Look to do more. Look to improve. Again, do you know what I'm saying to you? Not everyone's going to become a business person. When we talk about, run a business, not everyone's a business person. If everybody was a business person, the majority of people wouldn't be buying anything. So look, the whole point of them, if everybody was to walk through the door, who holds it? You know what I'm saying to you? That's the whole point. If everybody was a sheep, who will be the shepherd? And if everybody was a shepherd, who's the sheep? Somewhat there is gone. I don't even look at losers and winners. There are levels to everything that's going to happen. Okay? There are levels to everything that's going to happen. So all I'm saying is that for any man or any woman out there is to work realistically within that scope and I will say this as well. If you actually look at numbers, it will scare the life out of you. It will choke you in a different way. It's often people who don't look at numbers who start talking the wickedest and the most. Really look at numbers. Look at how you're spending. Look at your budget. Look at how you will realize life is very difficult. You know what I'm saying to you? And when you have much, you start to be humble too. God, thank you for blessing me with this amount of money. Thank you for blessing me with the ability to make that kind of money too, and being able to be humble about it. You know what I'm saying to you? Because when you look at life and how it changes so quickly, before you know it, we make these jokes in business. For instance, it was Woolworths that went out of business for us in UK, right? Woolworths, Kodak has suffered. You see, some of us think to ourselves, we will never suffer. We will never, ever lose. I am foolproof. And looking at business, it will tell you a lot of things about life. Today, you could be at top. Tomorrow, you could be at the very bottom. So be humble. And look at it from a perspective of looking at what God is saying for you. Let God be your source. That's my final thing to say this. Let God be your source in all things. Therefore, you can stay afloat at all times. But being afloat doesn't always mean that you have millions of pounds. It doesn't always mean that. It means that there are times and seasons where literally it may be that God is just giving you the bread in order for you to fulfill that day. It may not be the millions. You understand what I'm saying to you? So we're content when I have much, and I'm content when I have little, you know? So, yeah, that would be my final word. I don't know if you have a final word, Jane, and we'll pop off.
I think that this is mainly a financial conversation. I think one of the areas because we're talking about the income coming in, but what this has led on to is how you manage your finances. And for the Christians out there, there is a Christ-like way in the way you manage your finances. One thing I was thinking about earlier, to be male specific, is for guys to stop lying about the finances that they have or that they're able to maintain, that they're able to keep on a month-to-month basis. A lot of guys, and I've been there, spend way too much out of budget and create a false perception on what that woman is to expect. And then we complain when she realizes there's not enough anymore to actually finance this life that never actually existed in the first place. So that is a question that is a point actually that creates a false perception when it comes to expectation. Because as you know, ladies, what we start off with is what they expect us to continue. But it goes back down to how you manage your finances. It's such a key aspect where you and your missus, or your husband, you need to agree on how that happens. One of the things that my missus said to me like 2 years ago, that I understood it already, but I never had a woman actually say it to me, is that she doesn't even care if she is the breadwinner, because this is a general question because of the conversations we were having. She said what she cares about is if the man is managing the finances, as in she might be the main income provider, but she wants her man to manage the finances. That's what she sees as stressful. And that kind of made me think, because usually we look at it as the man manages, so the man brings it in, the man manages. Or for a certain culture, the man brings it in and the woman manages, right? This conversation for another day. But when she said that to me, it then allowed me to understand her in terms of the provision that she needs. Yes, do I earn more than her? Yeah, that's fine. But that still doesn't discount that she has been saying to me, the way that I manage money, the way that I manage her, the way that I manage ourselves spiritually, the way that I manage the relationship mentally and emotionally, actually means more to her. And that's how she can see herself building with me to wherever we're trying to go. And that was one of the most enlightening things that I understood when it came to our relationship. And it helped me to actually acknowledge, because someone mentioned compatibility, Aisha mentioned it, is that one of the biggest truths is that we have continued to choose people that we were never actually compatible with in the first place. We have continuously tried to put them in the box or try to control, and it's men and women. We've tried to, position them in places that they never never meant to be in the first place. We haven't been patient enough to actually sit down and actually look at all the angles, now, the middle, and the future. We've tried to acquiesce. We've convinced ourselves this is not the case. Now we've reached a time where a lot of men and women are tired and saying, well, now we're going to stop this. We're going to communicate. We're going to talk. This is where it needs to be. It may be okay that we're not there yet, but ultimately, how do we get there? That to me is one of the best things any would-be couple, would-be married couple needs to do. Have that real deep conversation and just not go with the flow. Because a lot of what we have discussed today can be alleviated by having these conversations early. Not later, but early. So you both know where you stand. You be open and honest about what you were able to do, what you want to receive, and what you expect.
And something came in my head as well just before we go, for anybody out there specifically as well, I think from both men and women, like I said, we're in a generation where we are having to work together. So my thing is this, right? Personally, and I would say this to my daughter, I would say this to my sister, I would say this to anybody, if you are going to be both earning the finances in that household, do you think that chores should not be shared too? Absolutely. I think they should. Whether it's cooking, whether it's cleaning, whether it's ironing, I don't give a heck. There should be a shared ability here. Because if I'm asking you to contribute financially, I'm also going to contribute towards the household too, right? Meaning I'm going to be up here helping with the upkeep of that house. So I think that's also a major thing because it creates burnout. I've seen it. So I know it creates burnout. Brad, even me cleaning my own house, brother, it can be long. You understand what I'm saying to you? No, it can be long, brother. It can be long. So I understand so this is what what I'm really saying is this. Teamwork is about how best can I really alleviate the stress for you. I know what my skills are. You know what your skills are. I don't want to look down on you because your skills are valuable to me, right? And it's funny because I need to even by the end of this month, end of next month, I'm gonna hire a cleaner. I said why? Because I don't want to clean this house unless somebody else clean it. You know what I'm saying to you? I'm willing to pay for it to get it done. Now, am I trying to be bougie? No. Actually, somebody taught me this. One through business, and actually a friend who also said that he had a cleaner. And I was like, why do you have a cleaner for? And I realized, you know what it is? It's just an alleviation of stress. That's all it is. So when it comes to teamwork, all it really is that there are things that I can do that will alleviate your stress. If I can pay more of the bills, let me do that. It will alleviate more of the stress for you. I'll pay as much as I can if I can only financially do this much. So that's why I would say that for men, for us, I would love for us to strive more in that area, to try and do as much as you can in that area. That's what I'm saying. But when it comes to the home too, we should be able to help as much as we can to alleviate the stress so that both people are not stressed. I don't want to see my wife stressed. She don't want to see me stressed. You know what I'm saying to you? All right. So that's what the teamwork is all about. How can I alleviate that stress? How can I fill in? What skills can I use to aid you? What skills can you use to aid me? And value those skills in each other. That is what I want to see from my generation going forward. You know what I'm saying to you? Because if we are going to be asking people to contribute, or we need them to contribute, then there should be contribution across the board. It's not just that you earn this, you pay the bills, and then when you come home, you're still cooking, you're cleaning, you also got the baby on your back. That for me is slavery. It's slavery for me because I know how painful it can be and how tough it can be. Now, if you're paying on the bills, you got a bit more of a leg to stand on. You know what I'm saying to you? But if you're not, I would say to you, you should be looking at how best can I fill in for this woman, and how best can I fill in for this man? What can I do? Maybe you don't like cooking. All right, cool. Maybe I got to fit in with the cooking a little bit. If you love cooking, then that person loves it. It's not a chore to them. They love it. Do you get what I'm saying to you? So it's about being able to really give and take as well, you know, and be able to hear each other. And I think that is honestly the way to go. I said I was going to say the last word, but go for it, Jay. For another last word, you finish it off so that I won't say anything again.
No, you said it, man. You said it. And this is kind of, I know Anton was trying to allude to this, but ultimately we've been talking about this for the past how many years, bro? Where when it comes to balance, when it comes to actually looking at what's in front of you and working together, we're in 2024. We acknowledge that there's very, very, very few people in the West who have the perfect traditional setup. What is happening is that there needs to be a level of balance in the home, as you said, for both people's stresses to be alleviated. As a man, I will say, the moment I understood that, based on what a woman's experience is the moment life completely changed for me. Because that then meant, I'm not going to be perfect, but that then meant I then made decisions that would directly alleviate that. And I see the response. It's the same thing for ladies. It's when you're looking at a guy, do you actually understand what a guy's nuance experiences and what he goes through? If you don't, just get to know, asking questions. But this is where we are in 2024. Where life is now has made things worse for relationships and marriages. So we have to operate with more wisdom and with more grace in terms of what we are doing and what we're getting into, which is why I'm always a big proponent on never be scared to have conversations early about anything, whether it's about marriage, it's about kids, our finances. You know, I understand there's certain details that you might not want to be going into just as soon as you met someone, but you should be transparent about how you feel and how you think. That and don't lie about it. But that should be the case anyway. But yeah, this has been good. As some of you have watched it, you know that there's so much more, you know, that we could discuss when it comes to Yada and Anton and this particular space anyway. I know some people feel like we all have the same conversations, but ultimately people still have these struggles. People still have these conversations with themselves. People still realize what they don't want or what they do want every single day, which is why we have these conversations. Speak to any marriage counselor and they will tell you, yeah, there's not a year that goes by where they don't have the same conversations with people. So obviously it's still an issue that needs to be addressed all the time.
Love that, bro. All right, listen, audience members, thank you so much. You know, it's been an amazing chat as well. I love the conversation. I love the different points of view. Love that everyone brought their different points as well. This is the kind of conversations we need in 2024. Healthy, dynamic conversations where we can share and be a participant and bring about healthy relationships. So make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification of the uploads. We appreciate y'all for joining us today. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. I'm going to go live probably the next 20 or so minutes. Myself and John talking about Love is Blind once more again. It feels like I'm on Love is Blind all day out here as well. So much appreciation. We'll see you again very, very soon. Much love.